My name is Michael Thompson, partner and senior wealth advisor here at Copperleaf. We're based in Williston and in Rutland, Vermont. And today, I am so excited to welcome our guests from the Vermont Community Loan Fund because this week is the official launch week of VCLF's new Justice Forward Fund. And I am so excited about this and so glad that we're going to be able to talk about it. So joining me today, our guests, Will Belongia. Will is the executive director at the Vermont Community Loan Fund. Will has been with VCLF for nearly 30 years, which is darn amazing. And Will is going to talk a little bit about the mission of VCLF and what VCLF is all about. Jake Ide is one of the directors at VCLF and is largely responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of this new fund. And Jake is going to talk a lot about the Justice Forward Fund. And Asma Ali Abunaib is one of the board members at VCLF that I have the pleasure to working with also as a board member. And Asma is going to help us talk a little bit about the need for this fund and kind of where it came from. So I'm thrilled to have our audience today. A few housekeeping items. Thank you for those that are joining us. You will have the opportunity to ask questions. I encourage you to do that by either entering your question in the chat below or in the Q&A, and we'll pick up questions as we go. We also may reserve a little time at the end if people have questions that they want to hold till the end. And this session is being recorded. We'll have it posted to our website in about a week. Sometime next week, we'll have it posted. So you feel free to share it with your friends. So let's get started. I am so excited about not only the work of VCLF, but this new Justice Forward Fund. And I want to start off with first taking a step back, and we'll ask you if you can just lay the groundwork for us and tell us a little bit about the overall mission and kind of history of the Vermont Community Loan Fund. What is the loan fund all about? What should people know about it?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you for having us here, and thank you to Copperleaf and all of you that are joining us. It's wonderful, and it's exciting time for me, for VCLF, for us as we work on some new things that we'll talk about today. So briefly, VCLF, our mission, we're a nonprofit. Our mission really is to create opportunities for healthy communities and financial stability for all Vermonters. And we use capital, impact investments, and philanthropy to help overcome issues of poverty, affordability, and opportunity. We've been around, the loan fund's been around for 35 years. We've got about $55 million in assets under management, 500 investors in the fund, probably just as many donors in any given year. 85% of those investors are individuals or couples, mostly folks here in Vermont. Folks that are really interested in the work we do and how we use that capital around investing in affordable housing, in nonprofit service providers, early care and learning, and then small businesses. And briefly, some of the things that we are, we're an SBA microlender. So SBA is a Small Business Administration, U.S. Small Business Administration. We're a certified SBA microlender, and through the U.S. Treasury, we're a certified community development financial institution. It's kind of the bare bones of VCLF. If folks need to, we've got a lot of information on our website. It's investinvermont.org. So it's pretty easy to remember. If you go, there's a lot of information about, more information about the loan fund.
Thank you, Will. I am just passionate about the mission of VCLF, and I love the fact that I remember from some of our earlier conversations that VCLF initially got started with some capital earmarked for childcare, for helping families that really need some support with early, what you call early care, but childcare, so that working families could work and meet their needs, and there was such a kind of a lack of childcare. And then housing, Anyway, I'm just incredibly passionate about the work of VCLF and what you guys are all about. With that in mind, can you tell us about this new fund, the Justice Forward Fund? It's a brand new thing. I think it's incredibly exciting, and certainly there's a need. But maybe Will and then Jake, I'll let you guys figure out who's going to talk about it. But tell us about the origins of how did you get started with this thing? What happened that got you thinking about the need for a Justice Forward Fund, and then tell us, how does it work? What's it all about?
Yeah, it's like I hope any good organization, there is some at various times while we've been around for 35 years, and I believe do incredible good work. There's always, I think, important for organizations to kind of self-reflect a little bit at various times. And so in 2019, pre-pandemic, our board and staff really took an honest look at our impact. And all of us were really proud of the core work as a social and economic justice based organization that we were making a difference. Like we felt really good. Thousands of Vermonters were being helped with home, with childcare, with essential services, with jobs in our rural communities. We were supporting women-owned businesses and food, farm, and forest, agricultural-based businesses. We were providing essential childcare to lower income and all Vermonters, frankly. And so it was a really proud moment for the organization. But at the same time, we noticed that our work wasn't complete. Like there was more to do. And that was actually a good feeling that we all thought about this. And when we looked at it, we realized that our work just wasn't affecting BIPOC Vermonters as much as we would like. That in several of the diverse communities that we have here in Vermont, that we were not as present or having the impact that we really thought that we could have or that we wanted to have. And that there was needs out there and opportunity challenges by Vermonters that we were not helping. So we wanted to do more. And so we really thought about this and really committed the organization and ourselves to expanding and working harder, to reach all Vermonters. It's in our mission. Opportunity, create healthy communities, financial stability for all Vermonters. And that kind of introspective look and that hard look was going, are there Vermonters that we could do more with? And that's really the beginnings of our thought process that ended in the creation this year of the Justice Forward Fund. Yeah.
So maybe I'll ask Jake. So what is it? And then we're going to turn it over to Asma, because I think they're helping us understand the need is really important too. But let's start with, what is it exactly? Jake, what is the Justice Forward Fund and how does it work?
So the Justice Forward Fund, which, as you say, we're launching a public awareness campaign around the Justice Forward Fund this week. The fund itself was authorized by the VCLF board to begin a pilot phase last September. We made our first loan last November, and we've made a number of loans this year as well. The reason for that being, and why we're talking about it now, was that we definitely wanted to do some of the work before we started talking about doing the work. We didn't want to announce a fund. We wanted to announce the borrowers that had been served already by the fund so that potential borrowers could see themselves with us. It was important to us to do some of the work first. And so we've done that this year. Now we're talking about it. And what the Justice Forward Fund is a very similar to VCLF's other loan programs. It's a loan fund designed to serve folks who have been underserved or unserved, left behind by conventional lenders and unserved by the modern financial system in our state and in our country. And in this case, we're talking about creating access to capital for Black, Indigenous, and Vermonters of color, or BIPOC Vermonters. We're going to use that acronym a lot. I want to clarify what that is. Black, Indigenous, and Vermonters of color, or BIPOC Vermonters. Face undue challenges much greater than white folks in accessing capital and financial services. The legacy of systemic racism in the financial industry is historically documented, well understood. The ideas of redlining and the ways that wealth has been extracted from communities of color over the history of our country, and not really, not at all, institutions created to stop that extraction and to build up wealth in communities of color, communities that are non-white communities.
So it's a loan fund. I just want to clarify a little bit. It's a loan fund, meaning if I am part of this discrete population, and we'll talk a minute about how would I identify as being a member of that and qualify for the fund, then I can borrow to start a business. What are the criteria? What can I borrow for, and how much is there a minimum or a maximum amount that I could borrow? Sure. And what's the interest rate structure look like? Is it like putting it on a credit card and it's going to cost them 15%? I imagine not. I'm being a little facetious, but nope. what makes it what makes it appealing? And so talk a little bit about the specifics there.
So like Will said, our mission is to serve the underserved. In this case, we're specifically serving BIPOC Vermonters who have been underserved as well. And we're kind of going beyond what VCLF usually does and really poking at some of our eligibility characteristics and the underwriting, the ways that we evaluate loans and make loan decisions, to really push ourselves to get beyond that, to make loans to folks that have a good idea and have a good plan and have the desire to make it happen, but just have been told no by the banks. And so the way that we're doing that is creating access by making it as affordable as possible. So the things that are different about this loan program compared to other VCLF loan programs, you mentioned the interest rate. The interest rate for Justice Forward Fund loans is very low compared to other VCLF interest rates. I think our regular business loan interest rate is around 7.5% right now. Justice Forward Fund loans are no more than 3%. And depending on the net worth of the borrower, the loan interest rate can drop down to 0%. In fact, I think the majority of the loans that we've done this year have been at 0%.
Wow.
So really incredible progressive financing right there. But that's not, the interest rate is one thing and maybe the flashiest thing that everyone can relate to, but there's a number of other conditions, characteristics to the Justice Forward Fund that are very different for us. It's a much shorter, simpler, easier, quicker application process. There are no fees. We usually charge fees around closing and all the kinds of documentation fees. We're waiving all of those fees, or let me be clear, VCLF is covering the costs of all those fees. We look at folks' credit scores and sometimes involve that data in a decision. We are not looking at folks' credit scores, or not using that as an eligibility requirement for this program. Usually borrowers have to secure the loan that they borrow with collateral. We're not requiring folks to have any capital. These are all barriers. These are the most common barriers that happen to exclude people of color from accessing capital, because they don't have access to the wealth that you need to be able to go get a loan. If you don't own your home, which is statistically shown that a greater percentage of Vermonters of color, certainly folks of color in the country, but national, but in the state, folks of color in Vermont, lower percentages of home ownership in communities of color, lower net worth in communities of color. If you don't have the assets to be able to pledge against a loan for collateral, you can't borrow. The bank just says no. And so we're waiving collateral because we want to open this up to folks that have not yet had the opportunity to build wealth, and really see if we can build some wealth within these communities.
And I just want to clarify, that really is the objective is to help people build wealth and move forward. This isn't a loan for somebody to cover their rent, but it's really for an idea to start a business, to form an enterprise, to put together. Talk to us a little bit about what are some of the ideas or the concepts that the Justice Forward Fund will consider loans for.
Well, we'll consider loans along all of the typical the typical categories of folks that we look at now. You're right in identifying small businesses. It's primarily probably going to be a small business loan program. We're talking about microloans, which was something, and I can talk a little bit later maybe about the survey that we did where we identified some needs in the community, but $40,000 microloans, traditionally, or probably most typically to small business owners, including sole proprietors. We'll lend to nonprofit organizations or community facilities that are centering BIPOC issues and service to BIPOC communities in their mission and in their work.
Yep.
Early care and learning businesses, kind of the typical things that VCLF lends to. But in these cases, need to be controlled or led by Black, Indigenous, or Vermonters of color.
I've learned some things being on the board, talking to Asma and learning about the Justice Forward Fund. And Asma, tell us a little bit about, I know that part of the population that's that we expect to take advantage of the Justice Forward Fund are new Americans, are folks that may not have a traditional understanding of how the American financial system works or the banking system might work. It might be completely foreign to them. So I think education is a big part of it. But Asma, tell us a little bit about what should we know about new Americans, about this population and their familiarity with financial systems. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm also very excited about this fund, and I have talked to many people about it to apply for it because I know there's a lot of challenges, especially for the new American or for the immigrants. And I believe they are the bigger percentage of the people of color in the Vermont state, actually, than other American of color who were born and raised here. So I think the bigger percentage of the people of color in Vermont from the immigrants and refugees who came through the refugee resettlement. They do have a lot of struggles finding jobs, finding the resource for like a safe and successful integration in the States too. I believe I believe we need to do more work for to make the state inclusive enough for them to have a prosperous life. So the majority of them are coming from a refugee camp that they have been living for many years. Some younger generation has been born in there, so they don't know any life but the refugee camp and US. So for the adults, it's very hard for them to understand. Not even if there's some refugees who coming from English-speaking countries, but the vocabulary, the abbreviation, the language, the themes, everything that used on the financial system is very new for them. They don't know what does that mean, even if you translated it forward. I have in my job with CVOO, I have this example that I showed for the people on the director meeting on CVOO, that the community ambassadors from like 5 languages, I asked them to, like when you tell American person ask them, or when you say credit for somebody who born and raised in America, they understand what you're talking about and the effect of this word in their financial life.
Right.
But they don't, it doesn't like mean anything for somebody who's coming from West Africa, Middle East, Asia, developing country, that or somebody who's coming from a refugee camp who doesn't know about what's credit. So I asked the community ambassador on the Financial Future program at CVOO, who helped us with the outreach to the community and forming the groups for the like education opportunities with them about the financial system in America. And I asked them to write in their language if you get to say credit for your community in a way that they understand what is that. Write it down in your language in a paper. So the shortest was more than half a page to say just one word in English that well known to everybody. Yeah. So and then after that, we have to be creative on linking it to their life before here. It's about trusting you and borrowing money, that you're giving the money back. So you have to give a simple example of a rich man in your village who you borrow money from. If you didn't return twice, he will not give you in the third time.
Right.
So here is the credit. What tells the people who can give you money if you are trustworthy or not. And that helped a lot to connect them to, because a lot of them, they cannot compete on the good jobs, good paying jobs here based on their qualification from outside America. And the language sometime and accent, and I think the job market is not ready for people with accent and different color.
Right.
In Vermont yet, I believe, because there is very, very well qualified people who have high education. They have a wealth of experience, but they still don't get the job, even if they did a good work and a training, or even if I have seen cases where the employer, they know that the person is can do the job, but they are really hesitant, maybe because they don't understand Vermont jokes to include them to the team or something like that. But it was, so it's the community a little bit not ready for that. But that's what makes a lot of people that I talk to during my work with CVOO thinking about having a business. Because they cannot get the job that will satisfy them. And then here's the struggle of understanding, or the acronyms, how the system works. What does this word mean? Even if you give them what is the acronym words, they still, it is something needs more explanation. So that's why I always mention, and I think Will and Jake heard it a lot from me. It is about the content that you share with them when you wanted to give them information, not about word by word translation for what you share with the English speakers in America, or the American people who are familiar with that, with all this financial vocabulary.
Yeah, this is one of the things I love about the Justice Forward Fund, is that, it's one thing to say, okay, we'll get a pot of money, we'll make it available, people can borrow it, done, that's easy, right? But it's the communication and the outreach to the community, as you say, Asma. Such a large percentage of the BIPOC community in Vermont are new Americans that may not even know how to apply for a loan, or that a loan may be available to help them start their good idea, start their business, or work on the enterprise that they're working with. And what I love is that Will and Jake and the rest of the folks involved with the Justice Forward Fund, and you included, have emphasized and understand the importance of working with CVOEO and other folks to do outreach to help with this education and help make these funds accessible in a way that's meaningful. Accessible means reaching the people and helping them understand what's available and how to access that capital. And I think that's so powerful. And I'm so enthusiastic and excited that you guys have taken this step to kind of make this work. There are some current borrowers. Jake, you talked about how the board approved it, but said, let's do it as a pilot and get a couple of things going. Can you or Will maybe tell us some stories? Do you have one or two examples that you can walk us through, and how's it going? Tell us what you've discovered.
Yeah, I certainly can. Yeah, let me. I'm gonna. I've got two folks. And I'm gonna share a screen. It's just gonna be a picture. So the first one is Adolf Lumumba, and he is his business is called First Class Ride. And Adolf, he arrived in Vermont from his native, Democratic Republic of Congo in the early 2000s, and he worked various jobs here in Vermont before signing on as an Uber driver. And he did that for a few years and realized, I don't know how quick, probably fairly quickly, but realized that it was not going to build wealth for him. It was not going to provide him really what he envisioned, what he hoped for here in Vermont. But while driving for Uber, he was able to observe an emerging niche market that other Vermont transport groups, even Uber itself, really had missed here in Vermont. And it was really corporate executive destination wedding partners, skiers, prom goers, and other well-heeled travelers that wanted more luxury vehicles, offering comfort and style and privacy as they motor throughout Vermont. And he actually does go outside of Vermont a little bit if folks need to do that. The first step for him was getting a loan, and he actually met with a series of banks, all of whom liked his idea. They saw his business plan. He has the capabilities, wrote a business plan about this, had some projections, understood what it was going to take, the capital he was going to need. He actually had thought this through really well. But the banks still, they wouldn't lend to him because he just didn't have a credit history. He just didn't have, his credit score was so low because he had no credit. And that's one of the things with our credit scoring system here in the United States. If you don't have a lot of credit history, your score is just low. Anyone ever looks, if anyone is in that boat, it's not because they had bad credit or they missed payments. It's just they didn't have a lot of things on that report to be measured. And so, he didn't have a lot of net worth. He didn't have a lot of personal net worth. The collateral is just going to be the vehicles. Didn't have one bank, he said, offered a small piece of the capital, but not everything that he needed. He didn't have a lot of assets or just cash to put towards this business. So it was going to be pretty debt funded in purchasing the vehicle. And another one quoted interest rates that were into the double digits. So he was offered some, but nothing that was really going to help his business, this nascent business, be successful. Well, he then met with VCLF's Dan Winslow, who's our director of business programs. And Dan met with Adolf and really liked him. I mean, saw Adolf's ingenuity, saw the marketability in this plan of his, reading the business plan, and got excited about it and went ahead and greenlighted his first VCLF loan. That was to buy a gently used Mercedes Sprinter van. And it's not just a Sprinter van as you might envision it with, 4 rows of seats that you take to get to the airport, from the rental car area or whatever, your hotel. These are a little more posh Sprinter vans with, designed for a wedding party or, something like that. And, it's worked really well. There was a definite need. He's probably been in business now a year, with the Sprinter van for about 6 months now. And it's been going really well. He actually then came to us most recently to upgrade his second car. He was using a luxury car, but it was getting old. So he actually came to us for a Justice Forward Fund to loan to get a new Escalade. So it's a second vehicle to take folks, and that's been going well. And he's now, his current plan, where he's at today, he's really busy. Things are going really well, but he's wants to add another Sprinter van, another luxury Sprinter van, and hire an employee. That's his next step that he's planning on doing. And he's come to us, VCLF, for a third Sprinter van, a third vehicle, a second Sprinter van, also decked out. And we're working with him. This is going to be new. We're working with him on hiring an employee and all of that, what that means. And we told him, first off, we're going to work with you on an account. We're going to need to make sure that you understand IRS now, the payroll taxes and that whole piece. It's actually the whole hiring a first employee for anyone, small business owner, is a big step. There's a lot of rules and regulations, but for someone who is just fairly recently here in the United States from the Republic of Congo, it's a whole nother level of acronyms and things to have to understand as he hires an employee. But he's going well, and so we're really proud of what Adolf has done.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that story. So here's a guy who new to this country, started driving for Uber. And all that entails, and I'm sure that wasn't the best deal for him, and had its challenges. Went to various banks, couldn't really find favorable financing, but because the Justice Forward Fund and VCLF has managed to truly become an entrepreneur and build so far a very successful business. But what I also like about what you said, Will, is there's business support there too. That VCLF isn't simply writing him a check and saying, see you later, good luck, but there's all kinds of support that you guys are providing to help him understand the ins and outs of hiring people, of making sure his books are good, he's meeting all his business obligations. So those additional services sound to me like they're really important. How much of that is kind of baked into your thinking about the Justice Forward Fund? Do you anticipate providing that type of additional service and support from a business planning standpoint to folks too, to help make sure that they're successful?
Yeah, we are. It's actually been our model of financing for decades now, has been the combination of both the capital and assistance, and our business resource center, providing just those things to everyone that we finance. We knew for this program and that we were going to need to, we were going to have special attention or more attention, more capacity to provide that kind of assistance. And so we did invest in starting this up. We did invest last year in our business navigator to help us, to help businesses who need to understand things that I take for granted, that I don't realize when I say certain words that they have they're like, I don't know what you say. When I say, well, we'll pull your credit, what's your collateral? They'll go, credit, collateral, and so the things that I think of as the basics of lending is things that folks need a little more attention and a little more help. And so we took our current model, our model for decades now of combining capital with assistance, with business assistance and business planning and cash flow planning and helping them through that process, and knew we were going to have to spend some extra attention.
Yeah, I think Adolf's story is really important because I think that it is unfortunately pretty typical. He got the message that potential lenders liked him, maybe understood his business, but definitely were not going to invest money. We're not going to lend him money. And I don't think it can be overstated how different the experience of BIPOC Vermonters is when they go to access financing and go to access financial services, how different that is from white Vermonters. One of the things that we did over the 2-year period of developing this program was we surveyed entrepreneurs in Vermont about what their business needs were and about what their experiences had been accessing capital. And then we were able to, and that was entrepreneurs in Vermont, period. So we collected a lot of stats for white entrepreneurs, lots of stats for entrepreneurs of color, asked them a lot of different questions about their experiences accessing capital. And, unfortunately, Adolf's story is really archetypal. It is a common experience. Let me just throw a couple of things that folks told us at you, a couple of statistics. So 5 out of 6 BIPOC Vermonters that responded to our survey had experienced implicit or explicit racism, discrimination, or bias. That's a rate more than double white Vermonters.
Wow.
5 out of 6 people went to get a loan and felt racism. It's not okay. BIPOC Vermonters were twice as likely to experience the feeling of fear of denial, 4 times as likely to feel like their business's purpose wasn't even understood by the lender, that they couldn't communicate enough or help the potential lender understand even what their business model or plan was. Another thing that was interesting too, and this goes back to the wealth gap that we were talking about earlier, white Vermont entrepreneurs were twice as likely to seek, kind of friends and family money, to go out and ask their friends and family for support within their community, within their family group, being able to access that capital, access the wealth in their family. White Vermonters twice as likely to do that as BIPOC Vermonters, which to me says that BIPOC Vermonters don't have access to that capital. Don't have access to that community capital around them in their community, which only speaks to both Adolf's experience being very real and very legitimate. It's unfortunately very common, and really that all those barriers to access are what the Justice Forward Fund is trying to knock down. That's really the change that we're trying to do with this fund.
Thanks, Jake. That's really helpful. Asma, how does the Justice Forward Fund and VCLF get the word out to the New American community, the BIPOC community in Vermont, more about the availability of these funds, and what do you see moving forward as the opportunity to reach folks who need to access this capital, this loan fund?
The partnership is I think is key. Like for example, CVIO. I'm not working there anymore, but financial future program and the business advisors and the new financial empowerment for the New American project can be a big help for spreading the word, because they do have community ambassadors for 6 or 7 different communities who speaks the New American communities languages in Vermont, and they do connect personally with them and explain it in a way really responsive to their culture, and make it connect to what they need to know. Like there's the level of knowledge among the New American community also is varies. Some of them, they need just to understand what is the steps, and then they can go ahead and they might have all the requirement for the applications, but they don't understand the process thoroughly, and they feel like it is out of their reach. But if you can simplify them, connect it to how it works, then they can get it. Like my experience with credit, more than 70% of the group of the house parties, financial house party that we have been doing with the Somali women, more than 70% of them, they started building credit soon after we explained that through that event. And they were very focused. They understood what they need to do to keep the credit good. And 1 year later, the minimum credit that I have seen was 730.
Wow.
For all these women. Yeah, so it was like when they understand what it needs to be done, they always doing a good job. So it's all about the messaging, the language, and how you can make it related to them. And yeah, the process itself, like it looks like a lot of it looked complicated when you read all the requirements and what they need to do to get the thing. But when you explain this is just like one meeting to do this, or there is support, for example, in how you can deal with your tax, or there is support in these places, how you can write your plan, that might help them, that might encourage them to do it because they feel stuck, they don't know where to go with this stuff. That's one thing. And I would add also that the challenge of COVID now, I think, will make it harder for the messaging to go out, because there's many like business owners has been struggling, and they have to and they were very creative on how they can do it. Like I have seen 2 Nepali business owners decided to combine in one business to survive, and that was very smart of them. I don't know if they get that was in my last days at CVO. I was following with them. I don't know if they can get any financial help with any financial institution, but yeah, COVID also is like a lot of people who have been thinking about it and talking about having a business, asking for loan, now thinking about what if something like that happen again? What's my options? So I think a direct, simple content, like very basic content about how you can get the fund and what is available to support you to do your business, that will help a lot.
I'm sure in a minute I'm going to ask Jake and Will about now that the fund is officially launching this week, about the plan to get the message out with whether it's workshops or presentations to within these communities to help people learn. But before we get there, I want to see. I think you guys might have another story to share. Is there another loan that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, we've got time. I'm gonna put on my glasses so I can make sure I get all this right.
There you go.
I'm gonna share another picture with folks. So this is JFF borrowers Melvin and Damaris Hall, and as you could guess, they are chefs by trade. They had a really deep experience in specialty food industry, and by the time they had launched their new brand, Global Village Foods, based in Quechua. So Melvin was raised in Memphis, and Damaris was a native of Kenya. That's where they met and were married. They came to Vermont 3 decades ago, so they've been here in Vermont for over 30 years. They were attracted here to Vermont's ag community and the emerging artisanal food sectors here in Vermont. And they had a goal of introducing Vermont and New England to kind of the bold flavors of African dishes. And they first opened a restaurant, which led to them doing some catering, which through a fast growing following led to the development of Global Village Foods. And what it has changed is to ready to eat Pan-African frozen meals and snacks. And that's what they're creating. They are, at this point, really what they no longer have their restaurant. It's just ready to eat entrees, meals, and snacks. The meals are allergy friendly, using clean ingredients, and are sold throughout New England, mostly in natural food co-ops. They're in 42 Whole Foods markets around the East Coast, and they're all developed and produced in Equitably, Vermont, and then they're fast frozen for distribution throughout New England and the East Coast. And they recently secured, just before the pandemic, they secured a contract with the University of Vermont to provide this food into their wellness community, their wellness dorms, and into that cafeteria, and I think spread out. And so really Damaris and Melvin really saw, I think the next, where they see Global Village Foods going was into this kind of more institutional colleges sector. And so they came to the JFF. And this is just the way of life. They still, after 30 years being in Vermont, did not have, had not really created significant amounts of wealth. Everything that they had, they basically bootstrapped this business. And so everything was just put into this business, Global Village Foods, into the covering the costs of research and development and marketing and learning distribution and learning just kind of how to make this work. So they came to us because they needed, they just needed to expand. They needed a packaging line so that they could more easily produce the quality and quantity of this food for UVM, particularly with the contract they had, but also then to develop this broader distribution market into other colleges. So they had an immediate need for inventory. They were going to add some jobs. They're going to increase their purchase of meat and produce from Vermont farms. They're going to add a leadership position for their food service sector for this. They're going to continue to do the grocery stores, but they're going to add a position for this food service. And then as they grow, they think they'll end up, given their projections and where they think that this market could grow to, add 8 full-time, 4 to 5 part-time production positions in Equitably, which is great. Just as an aside, the Halls and Global Village Foods were just awarded this year the Minority Owner-Owned Business of the Year by the Vermont Small Business Administration. They were just awarded that. This isn't a startup, right? These folks have been doing this and through both highs and lows, providing this product throughout New England. And really had a following about it, but saw their growth opportunity, right? They saw this growth opportunity and realized that they struggled with finding the resources that they needed to be able to meet that opportunity. And I think working with our team, being able to help them with what kind of equipment they need, they knew the equipment, but how it would flow with their projections and their financial projections, what it would mean if you start this sector, because then they were going to tail off their retail sector. And what does that shift mean? It's a different margins. It's all sorts of those business things. And they had a really good handle on it all. And we're excited about this, but struggled to access capital. Even though they had a contract in hand from the University of Vermont, they still didn't have the net worth. So they needed to really fully finance the equipment that they were going to use. They didn't have cash on hand to put a 20% down payment on it. They've been using all their cash for the last 30 years to bring the business to where it is today. And I think when I looked back and thought about the Halls and their work here in Vermont, What struck me is that they had not borrowed money. And it could be a personal, right? I didn't really ask them specific. It could be a personal, they just didn't want to borrow money. I tend to think they probably were denied a few times. And that kind of colored. And I think we see that. We see people who do get denied credit just sour on asking again, right? No one likes to be told no. And the third time you're told no, you just decide you're just not going to ask anymore.
Yeah. So Will, thanks for sharing that story. So here's another great example where, these guys have a successful ongoing business that they've bootstrapped themselves. They need some equipment in order to address a niche that they see as an opportunity. But instead of maybe putting some new equipment on a credit card at 18%, now they've become borrowers from the Justice Forward Fund at what I imagine is a much more manageable interest rate and terms that can allow them to continue to grow in a sustainable way and get the support that they need to really truly take it to the next level and thrive. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're like I think all of our Justice Forward Fund borrowers, they're all at 0%. I believe it's structured with no payments for 6 months.
Wow.
And then it's amortized. Then it's principal payments only, since there's no interest. I think over, I'm guessing 7 to 8 years is probably the average length of the loan.
That's the right way to support businesses if you want them to get ahead and get a leg up and you want to address this community. I think it makes a lot of sense. I want to shift the conversation a little bit because most of the people that we have on in our audience today may be interested in knowing how they can help and how they can support VCLF and the Justice Forward Fund. And whereas I know VCLF has some investment programs where people can invest in certificates, I believe that the Justice Forward Fund doesn't have such a program specifically associated with it, but maybe there may be charitable opportunities to contribute to the fund. Where does the money come from to support the Justice Forward Fund? And what are the opportunities for investors or folks who, I should say, folks who are charitably minded in our community who might want to support this work? How should people think about that? And where's the capital come from for the JFF?
Sure, Michael, as the Loan Fund's Director of Investment and Philanthropy, I thank you for this question. This is squarely in my wheelhouse. I can answer this question for you.
All right.
You hit the nail on the head in a way that this is a different kind of fund. And so the ask for supporting this fund is a little bit different than our typical ask. The Loan Fund is an impact investment fund. So impact investors lend us money very similar to a bank CD for a fixed interest rate and a fixed period of time. And at the end of that time, we pay them back with the interest.
Mm-hmm.
And in the interim, we lend that money to the things that we lend money for. That works really well when we're charging the borrowers. The borrowers are charging us a low interest rate, and we're charging the borrowers a higher interest rate, and then we can make a little money off the spread in between, and then we go out and fundraise for the rest. Like Will said at the jump, we're a nonprofit organization, so we do all the kinds of traditional grant seeking, and we seek major gifts, and we work with philanthropists to accomplish their philanthropic needs, such as they live here at the Loan Fund, as much as possible. When you collapse the borrower interest rate from 7.5%, like I said before, to 0, we need to come up and you do things.
There's no spread.
Right. Yeah, there's no spread. And we say we'll make money on the fees. Like, actually, we're going to waive the fees. We think the fees are a barrier to capital.
Right.
There's all these different ways that we do our work, and lenders do our work and get paid through our work. So when you can't get paid through your work, you have to find someone else to pay you. And we're so lucky to be blessed by a community of philanthropists that support the Loan Fund's work. Whereas we would normally go out and ask folks to invest in the loan fund and support us with their philanthropy, we have the money to lend at this point. The loan fund has the impact investment funds to lend. We can make the $1 million in loans that we have pledged to make as part of the pilot of this program and go beyond that. But our ability to scale that up is going to rely on philanthropy. We've been really fortunate, like I said, over the last couple of years to have a couple of major philanthropists really fund this work at the loan fund and make this work possible. We've been incredibly lucky in that sense, and I thank them for that. But our ability to grow from here is going to depend on the philanthropy that is going to help us make these loans. And so that really is the ask for folks today. If there are folks on the call that feel moved philanthropically and want to explore this, please give me a call. Like Will said, our website is investinvermont.org. You can find me there. My email is jake@VCLF. You can definitely find us. We'd love to work with you.
So either directly or through their donor advised fund or private foundation or whatever, people can make philanthropic gifts to VCLF and earmark it for JFF if they choose. That's kind of what I'm hearing, right?
Yes. Yeah. We work with folks that use donor advised funds, and yes, we do it. We can do it.
That's fantastic. I want to remind people we're getting close to the end. If you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat or the Q&A. We'd be happy to have our very talented and brilliant audience address any of those questions. And in the meantime, I guess I'm going to throw it back to Will or Jake or Asma. Is there anything in closing that you feel like you want people to know about the Justice Forward Fund now that it's launching? And by the way, congratulations again for officially launching the fund. I think it's incredibly exciting. And what else do you want people to know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just put in there, we are learning, right? We're learning through this process, and that's part of doing this. And if anyone has thoughts or ideas or ways that the loan fund can do better, really, I think we are very open to those ideas and thoughts.
Great. Thanks. Jake, any closing thoughts?
No, this has been a long journey that is only partway done. It's been a couple of years. A lot of us on staff have worked on this really closely and felt very passionately about it and been excited to move this work forward. And, it's really gratifying that we can get here. This is not the story of the loan fund building a fund. It's the story of people whose lives are going to be changed by this fund. But it's been an incredible process, and I'm really happy with where we've gotten to. I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do as we grow.
Thanks for doing it. I am super enthusiastic about the impact that JFF can have. And Asma, any closing thoughts that you want people to know about this exciting fund?
Yes, it is very exciting, and I'm very grateful for it because I have seen the struggle of the new American community getting to the business, to workforce, and how all the integration or reintegration process was blocking them. So I would encourage I would ask the help of all the audience to spread the word that these people have, they are smart, they have experiences, and they have hopes and dreams, and they wanted to succeed in their life. And most of them, they know a lot about businesses and about jobs. So I hope the community of the employers in Vermont will understand that and be a little bit considering for them.
Great, thank you. I'm super pleased that we can participate in the launch here at Copperleaf. I want to thank the three of you for joining us today, and especially for all your work about the Justice Forward Fund. I want to thank the audience for joining us today. If you have any questions or want to follow up with anybody on the call, please direct them to either VCLF or to me, and we'll get the word out. And again, thanks everybody. We will have this broadcast posted on our website within a few days. And please join us next month, September 14th. My guest will be Jeff Levine. We're going to be talking about the new Inflation Reduction Act just signed by the president yesterday, and tax ideas that come out of that from a planning perspective for the remainder of the year. So thanks everybody. Have a fabulous rest of your week. Thanks for learning about the JFF, and good luck in the rest of your day.